excited for our way too early 2028 Democratic primary draft,
Are
which
you
I
coming to
think you
us?
caveated that we're going to have to cancel our plans if Trump invades Greenland. So
Well,
stand
we were
by.
going to do this last week, and then there was kind of like the tariff chaos, and we're not like too precious about this. We're not like, oh, how can you have a Democratic primary draft at a time like this? Because, like, first of all, eventually
They're
we're going to
already
have
going
another
at it.
election. Well, no, but also this is a really important nomination. I know every election's important, but like it's a really valuable nomination for Democrats because number one, okay, I'm gonna get myself in trouble here. I think if you follow the sequence where we bounce back and forth now every 4 years, I'd probably take the Democrats at 50-50, right? There is no obvious, maybe you'll have the number one pick and disagree. I think there's no obvious front runner. And also, like, we in 4 years as a nation may have a lot of change we have to overcome, dig out from. I'm trying not to sound too partisan, but damage we might have to fix. And like, this is a very important election. I know it's 3.8 years away, but like, it's worth thinking about.
Yeah, Nate, in some ways, that's what made this so hard for me. I did some prep, looking at all of the different possible contenders. And in some ways, you have to imagine what the world is going to look like
Very
at
hard.
the start of 2028 or halfway through 2027 to really start to imagine who would be best positioned to win. And it's really hard to say at this point because everything is changing so quickly. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. And we could look like complete idiots come 2027, 2028. But we will have tried nonetheless.
No, like I don't think anybody has better than like a 20% chance, right? If I get the first pick, the person I would choose might have a 1 in 5, 1 in 6, 1 in 8 chance, something like that. But you want to go over the scoring system? I'm going to show
Um,
you a little prop here.
Yeah, Nate, you went all out here. This is a little bit different than we've done in the past. It also, my one gripe is that it sets us up to take this very seriously and not
Good.
choose kind of wild card
Yeah.
candidates who might not be all that likely to run. So whether you want this to be serious or whether you want this to get silly is affected by this scoring system. It will probably lead towards more serious picks, but go ahead, take it away, Nate.
Okay, let me show you the scoring system. Okay, so try to flip this.
Oh wow, okay, where are we going? All right,
All
oh my
right.
goodness.
I went to Target, bought a dry erase board, right? So this is a scoring system that we agreed to. The big thing is winning the nomination. You accept the nomination. At the convention, you get 25 points for that pick, right? 5 points for officially running, 5 points for surviving until the first state, 3 points per state you win up until Super Tuesday. By the way, we're counting DC and Puerto Rico as states, but not the Virgin Islands. If we do,
What about Guam? Come on. Guam is like
no.
a famous big get for wild card
Okay,
candidates.
do you want to just count every contest?
Yeah,
No,
let's
we're
count
not going to
every
discriminate against
contest.
Guam.
Justice
Okay,
for Guam, justice for the Virgin Islands. I'm all in.
Democrats abroad,
Democrats
and
abroad.
and
Exactly.
Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal
Canada,
Zone. Don't
Canada,
forget those.
Greenland, the Panama Canal.
So 2 points for every state you win after Super Tuesday. There's also a bonus for big and/or swing states: California, Texas, Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Nevada. We're not going to do a snake draft. We're going to actually have one person go first. I think the snake draft's annoying because you have two picks in a row. It's a bad format for content creation. So whoever picks second, though, gets a 5 point bonus and wins in the event of an exact tie. So what we're going to do is
So,
play rock,
Nate,
paper,
does this
scissors.
mean does this mean we're really going to follow this all the way through to the end? Like we have to go
Are we
through this
not
whole
going to be watching
process
the
to
primaries
score.
anyway? Yeah, look, we're now on record. We're now on record with these picks, and so they'll be, part of the permanent reality that ChatGPT sucks up when it, yeah, this is part of
Well,
this is for real stakes, Galen.
Nate, I think you have to build an entire model because we're probably going to do this more than once between now and when we have our answer. There are also a lot of variables here and different ways to earn points. So, unless you plan on keeping track of all of this, I think we're going to need some AI help.
We can hire AI assistant coders, and that I don't expect any problem with that. I do need to play you at rock paper scissors. Whoever wins will have the choice to go first or go second. Whoever
Ooh.
loses will have their choice of colors, pink or blue. kind of a gender reveal. I didn't plan it that way, but yeah. Okay,
Just
so
don't blow up your apartment in the process, Nate.
okay, Galen. So it's going to be 1, 2, throw. Okay,
Okay.
ready? 1, 2, throw.
What did you get? I can't see
I
this.
had, I had paper. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so you
All right,
win.
cut.
You want to go first or get the second pick in the 5-point bonus?
Ooh, okay. I want to go first.
You want to go first? Okay, so I'll pick. I don't know. I feel this is awkward now. I'll pick pink.
What
So
does
I'm gonna
that
go.
what does that accomplish? Oh, that's the color that we're using
It's really
for
more magenta.
uh now the pressure is really on for me though, because I went bold with the first pick with taking the first pick, and my first pick itself is going to be a little bit bold.
Oh no, are you gonna steal my pick? Okay, Galen, reveal your pick.
Okay, my first pick of the first round draft is Alexandria
Fuck you!
Ocasio-Cortez.
Sorry, are we allowed to say it? It's Substack. We can say whatever we want. That was gonna be my fucking first pick. Oh my god, we
Nate, I think
both
we spent too
are
much
on the
time.
AOC bus.
I think we've spent too much time together. We share a brain at this point. But I will make my argument nonetheless. I think there's a lot of points in her favor at this very moment. But I'll look to the data first, given who we are. In a Yale poll just out this week, AOC has the highest net favorability rating of any of the Democrats that they asked about. So she's positive 62%. Harris is second. She's very close. She's net positive 59%. So that means that Alexandria Ocasio Cortez has broad appeal across the Democratic Party, and there's a lot of people who could potentially get on board with her. But I think equally important is the fact that she has very fervent support. I think a lot of people are going to run in 2028, and it's going to be a contest for attention and getting those sort of people who might be in your boat to turn out and stay with you through thick and thin. And I think that's Ocasio Cortez. Like, the media is kind of obsessed with her, and they're going to follow her every move, which means she'll be able to keep the attention on her throughout the primary process. And she's going to have somewhere in the range of, I don't know, 20% of the primary electorate, especially if Bernie Sanders
Yeah.
doesn't run, who will probably be with her no matter what. And in the Iowa caucuses, in even New Hampshire, which is known as being kind of moderate, that's going to get you a lot of bang for your buck when there's still like 20 people running alongside you. I think that, as we dig deeper, if you want to talk about wins above replacement data, she hasn't done particularly well in her district recently, but the first time she ran, she
No,
outperformed the Republican by almost 10 percentage points, based on where we would have expected her to be,
well, she's not. She's
because of
not
the
running as a
partisanship
local
of the district.
politician exactly. I mean, like, I thought it was a few years ago she opposed the Amazon factory that was going to go up in Queens. Like, I thought it was probably bad from like a local politics standpoint. I'm not talking about the substance of it. But look, I agree with everything. She was going to be my first pick, and I can't conceal that now, right? Because of some of the polling, because she has this kind of progressive lane, probably not to herself, because she is younger and media savvy. I mean, look, in polls, if she were to run, try to primary Chuck Schumer, she is now ahead in those polls. And New York Democrats are actually a pretty moderate lot. I'm not registered as a Democrat in New York, but I might be like, hey, look, at least this is somebody who like understands how like the average American like thinks nowadays. Now, she's very young. I don't know that she's sure to run. I don't know what happens if she decides in the interim she wants to run for Senate or governor or something else and then loses. Maybe that probably is a risk factor. So there are things, and I also think you're going to have like concerns about quote unquote electability. But like she would have been my first pick. She was going to be my dark horse. So I want to bring the tote board over here so I don't have to keep going back and forth. So give me 1 second here, guys.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I mean, I just want to add, I think she's going to run. If you've been following her moves, in terms of her Fight Oligarchy tour, in terms of the kind of content she's putting out on
Yeah.
social media, Also, she has learned a lot as a politician since those early days of opposing Amazon, and especially those early days of the abolish ICE stuff that was very unpopular ultimately. If you listen to her message today, it's all about the economy. And she's really hitting
Yeah.
Trump on, I think, his most obvious weakness most quickly, which is the number of billionaires in his cabinet. He seems to be serving like playing to the tech elite and serving people who are ultimately not the median voter in America. And I think one advantage that she has in a Democratic primary is that as a woman of color, she's not forced to talk about identity all the time because she's sort of self-evidently different from any of the like white guys running. And she doesn't have to prove her bona fides there. At the same time, I think progressives have learned like stick to the economic message because what you have to say about the social and cultural state of affairs in America broadly isn't popular. And I think she knows that. And I think she won't be sort of like forced into a corner of Pete Buttigieg being like, okay, well, why can you represent a racially diverse party as like this white guy from Indiana, now Michigan? I think the Democratic Party has probably gotten over that a little bit, but not entirely, and especially not in a Democratic primary that's going to play out in the most liberal corners of America.
No, and look, she navigated, for example, the Israel Palestine stuff, which is a very difficult issue for any Democrat. She navigated that more carefully. I don't want to, more carefully than other Democrats did, right? I mean, and she's made missteps. I mean, I think she kind of like, along with Bernie, kind of re-endorsed Biden at the end when clearly that was a train to nowhere and electoral defeat ultimately. But she's a canny politician. She's charismatic. She is one of the more visible figures in the party. And like, yeah, the anti-oligarch message, you don't have to love the term oligarch. It sounds a little bit old-fashioned, but like that's pretty relevant when like Elon Musk is, although I guess now kind of getting like demoted, but basically like, the second most powerful person in the government right now. So okay, so my first pick.
Go for it.
So I had this pick originally first, and last night I'm like, it's just got to be AOC, right? In fact,
Can I
at first I
guess?
was going to say I'm going to defer to you, but I think that I'm now ahead 5-0. I got a 5-point bonus for going second. I'm going to take Josh Shapiro, which is kind of the predictable
We
pick.
share a brain, Nate. We share a
Okay,
brain. He is number two on my list.
so one Shapiro. I'm writing that down. More letters than AOC. So here is kind of my theory, which I guess is compatible with your theory, right? Um, in the past three nomination races, and really in most presidential nomination races until recently, you kind of have this compromise candidate where you have the moderates and you have the progressives, and you get kind of somewhere in the middle. I mean, Hillary is kind of that. Kamala Harris is clearly that kind of compromise candidate, right? You'd kind of argue Joe Biden is sort of too, although 2020 was a weird year because of COVID and other factors, right? And so, like, I think that middle lane, maybe just revealing information about my future picks, is kind of discredited, right? It lost two of the past three elections. I kind of lost three of the past four because I think like Biden having to be ousted was also kind of a loss this year. And the establishment's like not that credible. And so if you're not going to pick an AOC, or if Bernie were 10 years younger, I'm sure he'd be a high pick for both of us, right? Then maybe go with someone who's fully moderate, quote unquote, electable, who has stories to tell. I mean, the governor's mansion, there was an arson attempt just a couple of days ago, but those are things that, and like repairing the bridge. I mean, if the Ezra Klein caucus with abundance might be into Shapiro, he's from a swing state. He's clearly very ambitious. If you read the new Joe Biden book called Fight by Jonathan Allen and Amy, I think, Parnes, Shapiro was kind of a jerk in the VP nomination process. He's like, if I'm running on your ticket, Kamala, then we're going to be, running mates, right? I'm going to be a very, very visible vice president. She didn't want that. But he clearly has national ambitions. If he wins re-election, which he probably will, because 2026 is probably going to be a good year for Democrats. So I think that, like, I don't feel great about any pick, but this is my pretty solid number two after AOC.
Yeah, I think the other point in his column is that he's not played out. I think Democrats feel very negative about their experience as a party over the past 10 years. And while there is a lot of love for folks like Harris, Buttigieg, Whitmer, and, I don't know, even Cory Booker or whatever, I think people are going to be looking to this is like trite and cliche and whatnot, but like turn the page. And the fact, yes, he's been in the mix, but he hasn't been in the mix very much. And I think for a lot of people, when he gets out on the campaign trail, it's going to be the first time they're hearing much from him at all. And so it will feel relatively fresh. I think this is going to maybe reveal one of the directions that I'll go in. The biggest vulnerability for somebody like an AOC or somebody who's going to take the more progressive tack is, what if we end up in a place where there is full on economic chaos and people
Yeah.
want somebody who is a more steady hand, who's a bit of a technocrat, somebody who will sort of undo tariffs, get us back to like, at this point, the ancien regime of free trade and liberalism and all of that, those are outsiders. Those are, Jared Polis, who proudly proclaims himself a neo-lib, is now the outsider in this world of populists. And they will be able to make the case that this sort of chaotic, populist, let's try something new path has taken us down a path of, I don't know, a lack of prosperity, poverty, even, who knows. And I think that Josh Shapiro is somebody who will be able to play the like Mark Carney card, if that makes sense. Like, why is the technocrat, former sort of
Explain for
governor of
our
the Bank of England
non-Canadian
doing so
listeners who,
well
yeah.
in this moment? I think that's sort of Josh Shapiro's lane. And only time will tell where we get on the economy accordingly.
Yeah, and look, being in a governor's office, I mean, we do have a federalist system, right? And so you can be the governor who picks his or her battles and like sues Trump over tariffs, or you have a lot more power as a governor than you have as a senator when the other party controls the White House. So okay, we're not doing a snake draft. Although I remember I do have 5 points. I'm winning right now. I'm winning for until January 2028. It's pretty good. I'm ahead. But Galen, you get the second, or your second pick, the third overall pick.
Okay. I am going to go with Kamala Harris.
Bad pick. Okay, I'm putting Kamala. I mean,
Part
not a
of part of the reason is because this is so sort of wide open. I mean, I think the first two picks were good picks, but from here, I think it gets pretty complicated. And Kamala Harris has universal name recognition. She also, because of your scoring system, California goes very early in the cycle. Maybe if she does end up
all right.
running, she'll want to stay in until California. Um, she has universal name recognition. I think that she could go some way to clear the field if she decided early that she wanted to get in. I think we don't yet know how big of an electoral flop she is, because I don't think she ran a full camp. I mean, she obviously flopped in 2019, and she probably didn't run the best campaign in 2024. But I would be curious to see how she runs as an underdog with near universal name recognition. We all know how big of a role the black electorate plays in Democratic primaries.
Although
Maybe they see her.
she was never very popular with the black electorate in
That's
particular.
true, but in part because there were obvious other
Right.
people that they might support. I don't think this time around there are obvious other people that the black electorate within the Democratic primary might support. And I think, we saw with Joe Biden, he was bad on the campaign in 2019, right? It was not debate performances, it was not like ability to give a rousing speech or anything like that that got him the nomination. It was kind of just outliving everyone else and being a consensus candidate. And a lot of people who vote in the Democratic primary are not like the people, watching us do this live or even the MSNBC set. It's people who are like, I recognize that name. I like her. And she's going to have the opportunity throughout, if she decides to make the pitch for herself, point to video after video after video of her being like, I called this. I said that Trump was going to do this, and now he's doing it. And unlike Hillary Clinton, I don't think people see her as like, you blew a clear opportunity to win the presidency. And I also don't think people view it as her gender as the thing that lost her the presidency. I think people
See,
mostly blame Joe
I
Biden.
don't know about that. I think people. I mean, look at all these women we had run in 2020, right? Like Warren and Gillibrand and everyone, Klobuchar, right? And they all kind of underperformed expectations. Maybe Klobuchar was like the exception. I think there is a subliminal fear which I think is, I mean, it's a whole nother conversation. Probably should not be a 5-second soundbite, right? But I think, look, I think she did not run. I think she was a more appealing candidate than I would have expected by quite a bit, right? I think she made a lot of tactical errors in the campaign. This book, again, the fight book, is very clear that, like, um, Kamala refused or declined to distance herself at all from either Biden or Biden's people. It's also clear, that book, that, like, she actually isn't that trusted and wasn't that trusted by many of the big establishment names in the party, right? Obama and Pelosi wanted a grab bag third instant convention alternative, right? The Biden folks used her as like a decoy to say, "Oh, you can't get rid of Biden because you have Kamala," right? And they picked her as their vice president, right? So I'm not sure that she's going to, like, get the big donors and big bundlers. I mean, the exception is, I mean, she has to run, I think, for something in 2026, right? So she runs in 2026 and becomes, I guess, governor of California, right? California has a lot of problems. Maybe if you can tell some turnaround story for California, that's good. Otherwise, it's a little soon to run. I mean, there's kind of like the analogy to, like, Nixon, I guess, right, who lost as the vice president, as Eisenhower's vice president in 1960, but then ran 8 years later, right? Like Kamala Harris in 2032, I might have higher on my list than Kamala in 2028.
Actually, let's scrap this and do a 2032 draft.
Okay.
No, look, I think there are real challenges there. It's just that between like Pete Buttigieg, Gretchen Whitmer, Ruben Gallego, like I'll be picking some of those people soon, but I think given her general name recognition and likability amongst the Democratic electorate, it would be foolish not to get her on the board early on, I would say.
I'm going to make another zeitgeisty pick and go with Cory Booker as the 4th overall selection.
Bad pick.
Why is it a bad pick, Galen?
Cory Booker was exciting when I was a freshman in college and he came to speak at some symposium on campus. I don't think Cory Booker has had a lot of opportunities to make this play, and he seems to flop every time. If we're playing according to your rules, which we are, New Jersey does go. Actually, New Jersey goes in June, so I don't even think he's going to make it to New Jersey in
Wow. Well,
2028. So
everyone's an underdog here, right? So
everyone's an
everyone's a
underdog.
bad pick. I mean, AOC has problems too, right? I mean, look, the average primary voter is pretty old, and he kind of is a little bit cringy and dad jokey, but like that's kind of how all the in this house we believe people are too. I think he kind of appeals to that. I think he comes across as being like um, a little fresher than some of the kind of more traditional South. I mean, look, it gets pretty tough. I guess I feel better that like AOC and Shapiro in some order are better than this next tier, but like I thought you were going to support the Cory Booker pick, Galen.
No, I was mostly negging you. I actually think he is a good pick, and he clearly understand. I mean, he's a good pick amongst a bunch of shruggy emoji picks, and he clearly understands something about politics. He got that the electorate was mad at Democrats for not even taking sort of symbolic stands as they saw it, and did his 25-hour filibuster play. And yeah, I mean, if you look at God bless them, Echelon Insights is doing Democratic primary polling early and often. So if you just compare their results from March with their results from April, in April, his support is up to 11%. And that was compared to March, he was just at 2%. So, he understands something about commandeering attention in
No, and
this
like
media
one thing
landscape.
about these clown car primaries that we've had now are kind of the norm is that like it's hard to come back from like 1%, right? There's just too many candidates in the news cycle. And also I think this primary is beginning like now, basically, right? We talked
Uh,
about the invisible primary. It's happening now because there's no obvious successor. Again, not just for the nomination, but like which branch of the Democratic Party is in charge of this very complicated position now. And so, yeah, I don't feel great about any pick, but I had Booker on my list, and so he comes off the board next. And Galen, you have your third pick, the 5th overall pick.
I'm going to go. Mm, 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 mm. I'm gonna go PDB.
Bad pick.
I mean,
Mayor Pete. Mayor,
so
I'm writing this. That's why I keep popping off. I'm writing this down. Mayor Transportation Secretary Pete.
so I think that, like, I guess on one hand, I'm revealing what I think about the Democratic Party, which is that the MSNBC set, the sort of college educated liberal, who maybe even used to be slightly Republican ish or independent is going to play a big role in this next Democratic primary. I think that, and it's an older set of people, it's people over the age of 50. Boomers love Pete Buttigieg. I also think he's running, right? We even get points for are they going to actually run? I guess that's where my Kamala pick falls down. She may well not actually run, but I think Cory Booker and Pete Buttigieg, these girls are running. Um, his name recognition is very high. He's very well liked amongst people who know him. And we have seen the way that the campaigns have played out on TV and social media over the past decade. Uh, Leads me to believe that the sort of, well, one, he gets how media works. I mean, he and Liz Smith at his side, the Democratic operative, did basically every interview that came his way in 2019, and he gets national media. He does Fox. He also is very quick witted, right? He's going to be good in debates. He can say like he can come up with something to say that sounds good very quickly. And in the world of Twitter, Instagram, TikTok bites, I think that gets people really excited. Uh, he also proved himself to be adept at campaigning in a place like Iowa, which he won, let's not forget, in 2020. And there is some history of people sort of who do well in Iowa, but go on to lose the nomination, coming back and sort of clinching it the next time around. If we want to talk about data specifically, I'll just say of the folks who were asked about in this recent Yale poll that I cited at the beginning, AOC is number one on net favorability, Harris is number two, and Buttigieg is number three with net positive 50%. So I guess I'm really sticking to this poll here. But after that, it drops off significantly, right? Whitmer is third, and she's at net positive 38%. So these are people who Democrats know well, really like, and in a crowded primary, just having name recognition and being likable gets you a long way.
Is like, so he's not running for Senate in Michigan. Is like affable wonkishness, even if it is sometimes more witty. And I mean, like, I'm not sure that's like the vibe that like Democrats are going for, really. And unlike Shapiro, he's not going to be able to say, "Oh, I run the state and I roll up my sleeves and do this." He ran a small town, right, medium-sized town. He ran the transportation department in ways that were not particularly popular. I mean, there is also we are, I guess, kind of like not discussing various elephants in the room about identity of different candidates, right? I think there probably is some fraction of Americans who would prefer not to vote for a gay candidate, and another fraction of Americans who will be concerned about the electability of a gay candidate in the general election.
I think people don't care that much. They just don't want the person to talk about it all the time. And I think everybody in the Democratic Party has learned that you can be whatever you want to be, but like shut the fuck up and talk about the things that Americans actually care about, the median American cares about. Like if you get up and you give a speech and you shout out all of your perceived parts of your constituency, and all of those perceived pieces don't even add up to 51% of America, you're doing something wrong. And I think that if Democrats haven't gotten that message at this point, God bless them. I think Pete Buttigieg has gotten that point. Like, how many times have you heard Pete Buttigieg talk about being gay? I mean, he doesn't talk about it that much. He's mostly talking about, serving in the
Look,
military, being a family man, talking about transportation, talking about how he goes on Fox and talks to anybody. But at the same time, he's going to be able to raise a lot of money off those gay dinks in New York City.
we had been in a long decline in homophobia, and I'm not sure that we are anymore. That's all I'll say about that. But
Yeah, I think that's also true, but then wouldn't he be able to be like, look, the Republicans took it too far. They're no longer even now they're just being assholes. Like saying that you don't think that, minors should receive, trans care or that trans women should play in women's sports is one thing, but straight up being an asshole to gay, lesbian, trans people is actually not where the median voter is. So I think that maybe it's even an asset in a world where you want to contrast yourself with Trump.
okay, ready